Hey guys, welcome back to Storytime on our channel. We're reading an Under the Sea story, and it's called My Visit to the Aquarium. Today I went to the aquarium with my little sister and my big brother. The minute we walked in, I knew we'd have fun. The aquarium is full of fish and they're all alive. Some of the fish and other aquatic creatures were born right here. Some were collected from the salty seas and fresh waters where they live. Here in the aquarium, they swim in their own kind of water, in their own natural settings. I found out how they live just by looking. We started at the tropical coral reef. It was like a sunny underwater garden, busy with bright little fish. The fish live, hide, and lay their eggs in the nooks and chambers of the porous, stony coral. Other creatures live on the reef too. We saw stiff, lacy sea fans, brittle sponges, soft coral, and flower-like anemones waving in the water. Though they look like plants, they are all animals. We saw beautiful fish with funny names. Some fish were disguised by colorful camouflage. Other fish can't tell if they're coming or going. And neither could I. There were busy fish that never stopped working. Some poked around for food with their long noses. A parrotfish with strong, beak-like teeth broke off coral to find food inside. A blowfish puffed up for protection, and jawfish buried themselves in sand. We saw fish cleaning other fish. Clownfish live safely in anemones, which would sting and eat any other fish. One dangerous character looks like a rock, but it can snap up an unsuspecting fish, and another has poisonous spines. In separate tanks, we saw seahorses that lived in coastal waters. A seahorse doesn't look or swim like a fish, but it is one. We saw jellyfish, delicate marine animals from the open sea. We saw crustaceans, crabs, and a lobster that live on rocky reefs. So does the octopus, which changes color to hide itself. It is a mollusk which has a soft body and no backbone. Down the hall we saw penguins, those funny seabirds. My sister said they look like little people waddling around in suits. Penguins don't fly, but they are speedy swimmers. We saw them chasing little fish, but they couldn't catch one. We passed anchovies, which like to swim close together. There were hundreds and hundreds of them, packed in tight, moving in never-ending circles. Then we came to the giant kelp forest. It was 3 stories high and teeming with life. Here fish lay their eggs and graze on tiny creatures that live in the kelp. Fish of all sizes swarmed around the swaying kelp plants. High in the sunlight, schools of sardines moved as one silver cloud. Below, bottom fish brushed the sandy floor and eels slid behind rocks. They share their cool space with crustaceans, mollusks, and starfish. It was feeding time. The smaller fish started up for food, sprinkled from above. Just then a diver swam in to feed the big ones from a bag of fish. Hungry mouths opened and snapped shut. I could see the shark's teeth. In an aquarium, fish are fed carefully and enough, so they will not be tempted to eat each other. In nature, many fish eat other fish. Others eat tiny floating creatures called plankton. Bottom fish find worms and crabs in the sand. Some bottom fish are scavengers. They eat what other fish drop. The diver finished, and he waved as he left. We ran upstairs to my brother's favorite hall. My sister grabbed my hand. The room was dark and full of sharks. This was a hall of the cold open sea, where fish have space to grow big. The sharks were huge, and there were all kinds. As they zoomed past, I almost forgot they were behind a thick window. There were other big fish too. Some skimmed along the bottom, where flat flounders and skates were half buried in the sand. After that, we had fun at the tide pool. The tide pool creatures live among rocks and seaweed along the seacoast where tides rise and fall. They need water to live, but many can survive out of it for a while. We held starfish, and I touched nearly everything except the crab. We tried to catch the bat rays, gliding like pancakes in their own shallow pool. Rays, sharks, and skates are the only fishes without bones in their bodies. They have soft cartilage skeletons. After some lunch, we walked on. It was muggy in the tropical rainforest. A parrot squawked in the dense trees. Living things thrive in this hot, misty climate. In fact, half of all the world's wildlife species live in rainforests. We saw tiny neon tetras, pacu, and a piranha with razor-sharp teeth. We saw birds and lizards, snakes, turtles, and frogs. Next, we saw perch and catfish with whiskers and fishes of all kinds that live in fresh water. They crowd lakes, rivers, swamps, and streams. Turtles and other reptiles share the leafy habitat. A floating alligator peeked out of the murky water. Reptiles need air and water to live. In the coastal stream exhibit, we saw fish that travel. They live in fresh and salt water and in semi-salted coastal streams that lead to the sea. Salmon and trout are marine creatures. Salmon live mostly in the sea, and so do many trout. But every year, these fish migrate to freshwater streams to lay their eggs. They have to swim hard against currents to get there. At the beach environment, seabirds raced with the tide. Some jabbed their long beaks into wet sand. They looked for something to eat along the shell-scattered shore. From an outside terrace, we could see the marine mammals that live in the bay. Friendly sea otters frolicked and floated as they fed on sea urchins, crabs, and clams. Beyond them, slippery seals flapped on the rocks. Then came the biggest treat of all, the dolphins and beluga whales. What a rumpus they made. They leaped and dove, whistled and splashed, showing off in their big new pool. Dolphins and belugas seem to smile, and their little teeth show when they do. Before we left, a beluga came close to say goodbye. What a great day it was. Think of it. We were in tide pools, coastal streams, coral reefs, deep seas, and splashing rivers. And we only got our hands wet. The end. Alright, you guys, thank you for joining us during today's story time. This one was definitely one of the most educational ones we've had, so I hope you enjoyed. See you next time. Bye.